Tisha ended up getting checked. You don't want to miss that part. Now let's start here. Ain't nobody out here really that invested in Tisha's marriage to Marsau. I mean, let's be honest, people watch the show because it's called Love and Marriage Huntsville, which means everybody's marriage is fair game for conversation. You don't get to sit around acting like you can just smile in the background, do a little two-step, and escape the heat. That's not how it works. Tisha thought just because she's a Scot, she could get away with skating around the tough conversations. Nope, not happening. She and Marsau both have played this game of trying to avoid accountability, and we see right through it. The same way Kimmy and Maurice play it too. And we're going to talk about all of them today because this episode exposed so much. Stick with me because I promise the tea only gets hotter as we go. Now, let's talk about how Tisha, or should I say Latifah because sometimes her behavior deserves the full government name, sat at that table with Miss Nell and started gaslighting. She had the nerve to say she had a lot of respect for Miss Nell, but in the same breath she told her not to interrupt. Now hold on, Miss Nell wasn't interrupting. She was just making her point calmly without raising her voice. But here comes Tisha talking about, please don't raise your voice at me. Girl, what? Miss Nell wasn't raising her voice. If she wanted to, trust me, we would have known. Miss Nell is actually a much better woman than me because I would have got up and walked out. Straight up. The way Tisha's tone came off, very defensive, very condescending, and honestly unnecessary. And you know when somebody starts pulling out random stuff that doesn't even fit the argument? That's exactly what Tisha did. She started bringing up her son's PTA meetings like that was supposed to mean something. Girl, what? We don't care where you hold PTA meetings. That has nothing to do with how you were treating Miss Nell. Deflecting doesn't make you look better. It makes you look guilty. And Marsau sitting there choosing this type of partner, I mean, he got exactly what he wanted. He wanted somebody who wouldn't challenge him too much, who would play along. And now he's stuck in the mess right with her. But honestly, I couldn't do it. A gaslighter is one of the worst people to try to reason with because they'll twist everything around and make it seem like you're the problem. And that's what Tisha kept doing to Miss Nell. And did y'all catch how in the confessional, Tisha said, yeah, Miss Nell has actually dealt with infidelity. Baby, that right there is the difference. Miss Nell has dealt with her truth. She acknowledged what went on in her marriage. Tisha refuses to do that. She walks away, she shuts down, she deflects, and she doesn't want to face reality. That's why when her cousin Kiki tried to check her and bring things up about her marriage, Tisha acted like she couldn't hear. And that's exactly why she ended up with a drink thrown at her, because Kiki wasn't having it. All Tisha had to do was say, Kiki, this isn't the right time, let's talk off camera. That would have shut it down, but instead she ignored it. And Kiki wasn't about to be ignored. And you know what really got me laughing? Martell chiming in, talking about how Kiki soaked Tisha. I swear the mess keeps on giving, but here's where it got real. Carlos had to make Tisha face the situation, and baby, he wasn't letting her slide. He made her go back and sit through that conversation, and that's why the title of this whole thing is so fitting. Carlos made Tisha go back because you can't run from accountability forever. But wait, because it doesn't stop there. Let's shift over to Kimmy and Maurice for a second. Maurice goes to see Kimmy and tells her he's about to meet up with Martell. Now let's pause right there. Maurice is supposed to be this big-time attorney, right? But the way he's always defending Martell makes me side-eye him every time. Instead of holding Martell accountable for all the chaos he's caused, Maurice is sitting there trying to act like Martell is just going through a rough patch. No, sir. Martell created this mess all by himself. He destroyed his marriage. He dragged his ex-wife Melody back and forth to court. He got a side chick pregnant, and he doesn't even feel bad about it. That's not a man going through a rough patch. That's who he is. Believe him when he shows you. But see, Maurice tries to play this game. He tries to give Martell excuses so Martell won't start spilling the Scott brothers' secrets. And let's be clear, we all know Martell knows some things. That's why the Scott brothers look so uncomfortable at the reunions every year. They sit there looking nervous, praying Martell doesn't open his mouth. And Kimmy clocked it too. She told Maurice, "Why don't you spend more time with your son instead of babysitting a grown man?" And she's right. If Maurice really cared about he'd stop running behind Martell trying to play savior and focus on his child. But the truth is, Maurice doesn't want Martel dragging him, so he tries to stay close. And can we talk about the bond between Maurice and Martel? Because it's different than the bond between Martel and Marsau. I feel like Maurice and Martel actually have a closer friendship. Maurice has always given Martel more grace, more understanding, while Marsau just calls him out. Martel can't stand that because narcissists hate being told the truth. So, Maurice plays the soft role while Marsau plays the straight shooter. And that's why Martel seems to like Maurice more. Now let's get back to Tisha and Marsau, because their mess keeps going too. Tisha had the nerve to tell their daughter Macy that she needs to pick up her marketing skills. Girl, sit down. That's your job as a parent to guide her, not criticize her in front of everybody. Macy clapped back, though, and said, Marsau can't talk to her until he grows some hair. I hollered. The kids see through the mess, too. But when Macy told Marsau that he's dropped the ball as a parent, Marsau laughed it off. That's what he does. He tries to laugh at the truth so he doesn't have to deal with it. And then Tisha tried to tell him to stop giving his daughter money. What? That's his child. He's supposed to take care of her financially. Tisha really picks the wrong hills to die on, I swear. And then the confessionals had me rolling again. Tisha giggling about Miss Nell being a life coach, saying if Nell has a certification, then she must have a PhD. Baby, let's not talk about fake degrees, because if anybody shouldn't be talking about education, it's Tisha. If she's giving out awards, the only one she'd qualify for is a coloring book award. Somebody get her some crayons and let her stick to what she knows. And let's not ignore how Marsau tried to warn Tisha about Destiny. Now suddenly Destiny is nobody's friend. Funny how they only see it now that Melody isn't around. Destiny was never Melody's friend either. She was always closer to Martel. But when Destiny and Tisha linked up, it was all about trying to drag Melody down because they were jealous. And now that Martel is spilling tea on everybody, they want to act like Destiny is shady. Too late. The truth is, Destiny never had loyalty to any of them. And then there's Chris and Miss Nell again, talking about how Tisha was all up in Chris Fletcher's face. Even Marsau had to admit Tisha was wrong for that. She's always acting like every man is her husband. And when Nell checked her, she still didn't want to take accountability. That's Tisha's biggest issue. She refuses to own anything. Even when she gets caught, she'll find some way to laugh it off or flip it on somebody else. And Chris was clocking everything too. He said Tisha would rather copy and paste somebody's ideas than ever accept mentorship or guidance. And that's the truth. Tisha doesn't want to listen, she wants to compete, especially when it comes to Melody. She's always in silent competition with her, wanting whatever Melody has, even if it's leftovers. That's why she clings to certain friendships, because she feels like it's a way to keep up with Melody. And let me say this, when Miss Nell said a man just has needs and went out to get sex, that's where I had to stop. Because no, that's the problem right there. Too many people excusing bad behavior with a man has needs. Those choices have consequences. That's how you end up with side babies, drama, court cases, and broken families. It's not just casual fun. When you lay down, you risk a whole lot, and Martel is the perfect example of what happens when you don't think with your mind. So y'all, as you can see, this whole episode was packed with drama.